Well, I think content, in some sense, was never king. I mean, what made the money for the content companies was advertising. So you've got to look at the structure of advertising and how advertising has changed. Advertising fit very well with content, with TV content, sponsorships, other kinds of advertising. Fit very well with newspapers and magazines for many decades, and they had high profit margins, and it worked really well. The need to advertise is still very, very strong, and so advertising spending is still going up. But $80 billion this year, $80 billion worldwide, is in digital ad spending. So there's a huge amount of money, and it's just shifted. And it's shifted. It's not like the people who buy advertising, whether they're the biggest clients in the world or in the country or smaller ones, they don't want to advertise, they want to sell stuff. And they found that in digital advertising, digital marketing, you can sell stuff more efficiently. The whole connection of content and advertising is what has gotten frayed. The companies that I think have the best chance of making it are these national and global companies. From the New York Times, Wall Street Journal, The Guardian, BBC, the Wires perhaps, they have other challenges, AP, PA, AFP, Reuters. These are the companies that, because of scale, same kind of scale that Google and Amazon and Apple enjoy, because of scale, they can, if they can create high quality content and distribute it very, very widely at a very, very low cost, they have the ability to make a new business model and make it work and try to hold on to substantial newsroom resources. I am less optimistic about regional newspapers. And in the U.S., we really only have 3 national newspapers. And USA Today is not faring well, and I wonder whether it's going to be around within 5 years. So there's really 2 strong national newspapers, the Times and the Journal. And otherwise, we've got about 1,500 regional newspapers. They don't have the benefits of scale because they're only reaching a smaller geographic area. And consequently, these newsroom sizes have gotten halved, or in some cases more than halved, in the last 5 to 10 years. I think that's the biggest question in front of most Western countries, is what happens to the regional press. And where we're used to a strong regional press, the economics no longer support very large newsrooms. Yeah, it is. And in a sense, it's always been that way, but we never examined it. So you're right, it's content plus convenience. Now, the convenience of getting a newspaper delivered to our door was a pretty big convenience, but none of us ever thought about it because that's just the world that we were born into. In a sense, having the news delivered to an iPhone or a tablet product or a connected TV, and I think that's the next frontier, the next screen that we're going to be pointing to, including news companies, is just really an extension of throwing that daily newspaper on the driveway or the front door. So it is content plus convenience. To me also, this is just a recognition of human psychology. And it is not an accident that the model, this all-access model, is the same model being adopted by Netflix, by HBO, by Comcast. We're seeing the model in Helsinki, in Berlin, in Singapore. It's a simple consumer model. You say to people, pay us once, and we'll get you what you want. You want movies? You want your TV delivered where you are? You want your news delivered where you are? You want your movie times? You want your sports? We'll get it to you. We'll make it easy. People understand that, and we're seeing across entertainment, across Asia, Europe, and the U.S., some consumers migrating fairly quickly to opening up their wallets and paying. So that makes me optimistic. Yeah, the audience and the consumers are ahead of the publishers, which is a case that has happened far too often. So we've seen largely the national and global news companies, from New York Times, Guardian, Bloomberg is big, Reuters is big, create really good tablet apps, and to use the interactivity, to use the immersiveness of what the tablet can do. Most of the other newspaper companies in Europe and in the US have been very slow. What I've seen, and it disappointed me greatly, is I've seen a lot of these essentially PDF versions of newspapers. So here, let us take a picture of the newspaper in print, and we'll put it on the tablet, and we'll pretend this is a tablet product. So publishers were slow on search, they were slow on video, they're slow on mobile generally, they've been slow on social. We shouldn't be surprised that they're slow on tablets, or many of them are. But I think it's their last best chance to get it right. I think it's plainly both. The ability, if you are a young journalist, if you're 25 years old and you're starting out, and I've talked to people at a lot of journalism schools, your ability to tell stories better and differently and more widely, and use video and use audio, is unprecedented. Your ability to distribute that story and get it out potentially to many, many people, whether through a big organization or just the web, has never been greater. So all that is very good. The hard parts about technology is that in a business of scale, and where technology basically disrupts a lot of old processes, including old technology, printing presses and trucks that delivered newspapers, and big buildings that house lots of journalists, that's the disruption that is hard for newspaper publishers to adjust to. And they have adjusted way too slowly to that. So on the positive end, there's a lot to be gained there. There are other parts of technology that they should harness, including, and one I've written about a lot, is analytics. The ability to know what your readers and what your advertisers want, how they're doing with what you're giving them, and all, is also unprecedented. There's a lot of data that can help inform better journalistic decision making, and most companies are very slow to look at that. They sometimes post number of page views on a story, but to get a sense, as the Washington Post now does, of every hour what kinds of stories are moving and why, what's happening on Facebook, what's happening here, what's happening there, is very important for editors and journalists' understanding of that world that plainly exists. How they choose to exercise their journalistic judgment based on it, that's something else again. Now, what Google would say is the algorithm decides. They would say in Google News, no humans are involved, it's the algorithm, it's page rank, and they're very proud of that. Those of us who are journalists and have journalistic backgrounds say, no, human judgment is important, but it's not an either or. Human judgment, with the best data, with the best analytics, is where this clearly is going to go. And I hope that journalists remain in charge of that process of deciding what to get to their readers, aided by technology, not replaced by technology. Yeah, absolutely. It's going to have to be for the regional press. So for the regional press, there is simply not enough money, although it will grow again at some point, and I'm not sure what that point is. There's simply not enough money to sustain enough news resources, professional news resources, for regional and local reporting. So we've seen a lot of experimentation with foundations putting some money in. There are 3 or 4 significant national investigative outfits in the U.S. that are doing great work and finding lots of distribution channels, and proving that you're really not talking about a huge amount of money here. We're talking about, say, $50 to $100 million produces really high quality investigative journalism of a national level, and a significant part of it. The Center for Public Integrity, California Watch, and the Center for Investigative Reporting out here are 2 really good examples of it. And there's some smaller regional operations as well. And then we've got the Bay Citizens, the Texas Tribunes, the MinPosts, which are city-based operations. And it's interesting. You have, in general, they're proving you can make it work with foundations. You can get some revenue stream of advertising and sponsorship going, but you can't quite turn it into being a profitable enterprise, and certainly not a profitable enterprise that has enough journalists working for it. So,
I think it's hard.